common drill that we see where energy has been stalled. Basically, you're looking at stagnant energy flow. And the stagnant energy flow doesn't work again, and I'll explain why once again. This is our standard drill. Now we do it a little bit faster. And you see this drill being performed 100 times. And the guys keep on going, and then they start dancing around. And everybody's doing this in the class for 20 minutes. And it goes on and on and again. But again, what we're looking at is stagnant energy. It's dead. Human beings don't have stagnant energy. They have a flowing energy. So, in order to correct this drill, what we want is we want the energy to flow through. And in order to do that, you're going to see how the process changes a little bit, how the movement has to change a little bit. So now, you come with the drill, but instead of him doing this, he's going to come with the drill, and he's going to attack me with the weapon full force, and come through with the energy to me, as if he would in real life. Okay? So again. Now that's where I end up now. Come through with the energy. Exactly. So I end up in a situation like this. Turn around to the other one. Oh. Again. So the energy comes right through. Here again, I'm coming through. Now, see, I'm coming with force coming inside. Sometimes he ends up and he has no choice, but the hands come up and he stops me. What happens other times, when the energy comes in, sometimes you're going to have that. Notice that I'm not doing this. It's not a hand that's stopping anything. It's my body that's supporting this. Comes in again with a force. This is a natural reaction, whereas this is not. This is not a natural reaction to deal with an oncoming force. This is a static dead drill. Natural reaction to oncoming force is shit. I'm going to get hit. Okay? So he comes in with that force again. My natural reaction comes up. And I glide right through it. But I understand how energy flows, so I let him flow through. Comes up again. Passing right over. So I'm just gliding right over the hand. Like that. But this is covered all the time. And even if he comes back into my stomach, I can feel and move. The important thing is that I can move. I create distance between myself and the weapon. The fool is the one who wants to be close. That's the fool. The smart person is the one who knows he wants to get away from the knife. Because I can grab one of those chickens over there and throw them on top of his head. Okay? So that's the skill, is to get away from the problem instead of engaging the problem all the time. The only time when I want to engage the problem is when I want to knock out the computer system, okay? So that he can't function anymore. That's what I have to do. And then get control of the weapon. Okay? So to make the drill more effective and more realistic, he comes with the energy again. And then I move and I get that away. Okay? And then I come with my energy and he moves. Now you notice something, that it doesn't look beautiful anymore. It doesn't look beautiful anymore. Because as soon as the energy comes in, then suddenly you realize you got shocked, you were surprised, you were whatever, you were doing something else, and then somebody just is on top of you. Now this is usually not the way it happens. This is a drill in order to help you to understand the flow of energy. Okay? Usually what will happen is that you're talking to somebody, you have a problem with this person, the person attacks you, okay? Just grabs you and starts choking you, for example, okay? He's choking me, whatever. He's doing this, or he does this thing here, the two hands, or he does the double hand choke, or he wants to kick me, or whatever it may be, some other nonsense, okay? Regardless of what it is. The person is on top of me already. I'm trying to do something, and then a weapon is produced. Now the weapon comes out. And he uses the weapon against me. And again, he's trying to hold me, okay? Or he's trying to keep control of my clothing or something like that because he doesn't want me to get away. He wants to stick that thing into me repeatedly. So that's what you're probably going to be dealing with, okay? And if you think that you can do this and knock his arm off, you're dead wrong. try facing adrenaline when you're shocked in the middle of the night and try doing this. It's not going to work. Or some other cool technique like that. Look how big he is. It's not going to work. Okay? So I'm going to have to deal with that weapon regardless. If he's holding my shirt, maybe I can rip away if my shirt's really cheap. But, well, it's pretty cheap, you know? Okay, if my shirt is cheap, maybe I can rip away. But usually, you're not going to be able to get away. Especially if he's holding your jacket or something like that, you're not going to be able to get away easily. Okay? So you have to meet that. But when you're meeting it, you have to understand that the energy is going to continue to flow. It's not going to stay stagnant for you to do your drill. Okay? The energy continues to flow. So now he takes it, pulls it out against me. In the middle of the fight, he's moving, he pulls it out, and then it comes through again. So again, the movement has to be there, and I have to understand that I have to flow. I don't flow. I don't stop the energy, I flow and let the energy move. Okay? And then you do something, whatever it may be, to hit him, to shock him, whatever, so that you can grab control of that weapon. That's the way that you do your drill. Let's do this one more time in a smooth flow, but with aggression. So now, after, notice that I didn't try to disarm him. After I was able to hit him, and hit him a few times in the face, then, because I had control of the weapon, I was able to do something like that. And I grab it on the flat of end of the blade, and just hold it. I don't care if I get my hand cut. That is irrelevant right now. Important is that I can get it away from you, and I was able to. So that comes up, and then I can take it away. Okay? But don't dream of something like this. And then stripping the blade away from you. Or something like this. Don't dream about that. You have to knock him almost unconscious first. And then you can think about stripping. That's it. Okay. Now let's take a look at some common mistakes that we see on videos all the time. Now one of those mistakes that you see is the assumption that energy stands still, okay? And that you have a second chance in order to do something. You never have a second chance to make a first impression, and I'll show you why. The blade comes in, energy is cut, secondary hand comes here, and then this comes in for an elbow. I slap this thing again, here, come back again, boom, boom. Okay, the drill by itself is a drill. What is it actually teaching you? Can you come closer, please, and take a look at this? Now, when you come closer, you see something. The energy always ends up stopping, but energy never stops. From a human being that's angry, that is very aggressive, energy doesn't stop. It continues until you stop it. Okay? So, come through. I come here, and now my whole assumption is that his energy has stopped, and that I have a second chance in order to do this. Okay? Now, I want you to continue through with full energy to attack me. Now, that's what happens when he comes in with full energy. Now, if he comes in with 100% dedicated energy, and then wants to continue in on his assault with me, he changes direction and comes into me. Come again with full energy. And that's what happens in real life, okay? Because he changes his direction, he's dynamic as a human being, okay? So, if we want to be able to use this drill properly, we have to understand that dynamic and then change the drill a little bit. So that instead of the static, and then I do this, I want to create it into something that is dynamic. Okay, again. Okay, and then you can do it like this just for training purposes to understand how you're supposed to move. So when you see your footwork like this, your V-angled footworks, which you've trained so many times in your Kali, your Silat, your whatever it may be, you understand that that equals movement. It doesn't equal standing there and receiving assault. It equals me moving and getting away from a problem. Okay? Now, comes in. I'm moving away from the problem as best as I can. You can also do this from this position. He hides the blade. Put it, hide it away. Then, we're fighting. I see suddenly the triangle of death coming out. What is the triangle of death? This. This triangle over here. And that triangle basically is telling me that there's some kind of weapon coming out. It could be a gun, it could be a knife, it could be anything, regardless of what it is. So, we're fighting it again. That thing comes out, and now he lunges in with the blade that he's concealed. Hold it to me. Now he lunges in with the blade. What is it? What am I doing? I'm doing the exact thing that I did in the drill. I'm cutting the energy line and moving to get away from the problem. He could be trying to hold me. He's holding me by my neck, or he's holding my clothes so I don't get away. Because he doesn't want me to run away. I see there's a problem. He doesn't want me to run away. Okay? He's trying to keep me close. I'm trying to get away. He's trying to keep me close so that he can continue shank me now. Now shish me good. And then he continues with his shish kebab process. Okay? So, how you can train drill so that it becomes more realistic is like that. We're fighting. Okay, let's fight first for a while. We're fighting first for a while. And then, now the blade comes in. And then you end up in this kind of a situation here. Now, that is far more realistic than something like this. Come with the static again. And then I have time because the energy has stopped, and I can hold, and I can do this. When actuality, I would be doing something like this. Okay? So that is the difference between a static drill and a dynamic drill. If you don't change your static drills to dynamic drills, you will get killed because you don't understand the flow of human energy. Let the energy flow through, and you counter the energy and redirect it. And you meet that energy and stop it. That's the only way to survive and the only way to do your drill properly.
Yes.
Okay. Now, let's take a look at another common mistake. And that common mistake that you see all the time is where people are doing techniques and training and drilling with their hands open. Okay? This open hand configuration like that. This kind of a thing. They're moving. And then they have cool poses like that. And then they're training for an hour. Training. Not doing any kind of silat pulut for a wedding. They're training for an hour. And their hand ends up to be open like this on some of the techniques. Okay, just do it. And he's training like this the whole time, and you see them training like that. This is a deadly, deadly mistake that people make. Basically, the only way that you can keep your weapon is by holding it like a hammer. That's the only way you can keep your weapon. You go into a crack house in the middle of the night. You ask any paramedic, you ask any police officer, anybody who's actually gone in there, or an ex-convict, or a drug dealer, go and ask them what it's like to go into a crack house in the middle of the night. The first thing you're going to get is the smell. The second thing that you're going to get is that you have people there who don't give a damn. A lot of them who don't feel anything anymore when you're hitting them. These people are coming at you at full force when they want. For example, you shoot them up to get rid of the drug effect, okay? You want to take them off their high. So you end up giving them somebody to take them off their high. They come off their high and they're blasted angry. And they really wanted somebody to pay for this. So you're the next person in line because you're there. Even though you're trying to help them, they just want to screw you over. Okay? So in a situation like that, you deal with one of these kind of individuals coming at you full force, and you trained for 3 years with your hands open. So you end up in a situation where you've got this guy, and this is what happens. I'm leaving my hand open. He's not being tough enough with me. Now, that's when he's trying to strip the blade. Look where it just happens. I'm holding it as hard as I can with my little fingers over there. And he totally knocks it out of my hand. So, this kind of a thing ends up to be a failure in real life. The way that you train is the way you're going to fight. So when you do these kind of things all the time in your training, you look cool in front of everybody else, and it's blasted nice looking. But the problem is you're going to get killed when you actually want to use it, or when you have a problem. And this doesn't have to be a knife. It could be something else that you're defending yourself or your partner or your family with. Okay? It doesn't have to be a blade. It can be anything that you have in your hand. But because you've trained that way, you end up fighting that way. And it's wrong, and it will fail you in the end. So this kind of a thing is a mistake. The next thing that I see people doing when it comes to their hand configuration is the swapping, like this. The swapping, okay? They'll come here, they'll do a technique, and then they'll swap it, like throw it into the other hand. What the hell is that? You throw it into the other hand, and your other hand is going to be dealing with another serious problem, okay? It's not a smart idea. If you want to swap a hand, if you want to swap your hands, okay, to go from the right to the left and left to the right, it's not a technique. It's something that happens by accident because you trained in order to swap hands properly, okay? So for example, when I'm here, I'm coming over, I'm fighting with this dude, okay? I swap my hands like that, palm to palm, so that the weapon never loses contact with my body. And then I palm it to the other hand. There's absolutely no failure in this, okay? So I'm coming through, and then I got it in the other hand. Sometimes it will happen like that, sometimes, because you've done it many times, and the more that you get accustomed to violence, and the more experience you have, the more you'll be able to do fine motor skills. And that's something that many people don't talk about. The more experience that you have actually in real fighting and in real combat and in real situations under real stress, you end up to be able to do fine motor skills very, very well, better than the average person. At the beginning, the person who has only trained and doesn't have any practical experience in real life, they end up in the situation, they're able to do only the gross motor skills, and that's this. And it works fine. It works fine. But the more that the person gets accustomed to violence, people get used to violence, and you can see, talk to a person, a police officer, a paramedic, anybody who has experience with real-world stress under real situations, and you'll see that they're able to do fine motor skills under a high level of stress because they have so much exposure to this situation kind of problem, these kind of situations, that their stress level decreases as their experience increases. So that's why it's so important. If you have the ability to get experience or work with people who have experience in real life, it's such a valuable thing. Because they're not just experts, subject matter experts. They're subject matter experts who have a lot of practical life knowledge. And that sum of life experience is what you're trying to gain from them, to benefit from, okay? So, this is it. So basically, when you want to change grips, you change it by swapping your hands, and it's a situational thing. You don't plan it. It's a situational thing. It's not in the middle of a technique where you're going to switch your hand and then do another technique. No, it's a situational thing that I look at, and I just do it because it comes out as an instinctual thing. That's it, because the opportunity arises and I know how to do it, so I'll end up doing it. Okay? So that's a mistake that people have to correct. Another thing is the switching of the grip configuration. You do not switch grip configurations in real life. Very rarely, very rarely will you switch a grip configuration. The same thing when you have your karambit. I see people training, and they're training all the time with the karambit flipping all over the place, and then they turn the guy, and then they flip the karambit open, and they cut his neck, and all of this kind of stuff. It's all predicated on the idea that you're able to do fine motor skills when you have no experience in this issue. That's a very, very big failure. You need a lot of experience to get fine motor skills down. And the person that showed you that technique better have done it and tried it, okay? And had a lot of experience in order to do it. I mean, I shouldn't say the person that showed you, but the person who developed that system a long time ago most probably had a lot of experience in actual combat. So they were able to do fine motor skills because they had a lot of practical experience. They were cool under stress. Whereas a person who doesn't have that coolness under stress will not be able to do that. It's a very rare individual who can do that. It takes a lot of experience in order to get those things done. It's not done because the person is just that amazing. No, it's a lot of experience, combined life experience that gets the person to that point. But don't think you can duplicate somebody else's experience by training. You cannot, okay? So that's a fallacy. So when you're doing this grip changing thing, okay, it looks great in training, and then I'm there, and then I start changing my grip and going, oh, it looks fabulous, but don't ever try that. You know how the grip change actually works in real life? The guy just stripped the weapon away from me, and it's on the floor. Okay? I had it in the front grip, and then I'm fighting with him, and then I ended up grabbing it, and I end up grabbing it like this. Or it's this way, and then I ended up grabbing it like that. That's how a real grip change ends up working. Or we're fighting, okay, and I try and get to the weapon like this, okay? We're both trying to fight our way to that weapon because we both want it. And then I end up grabbing it like this, okay? Because that's how I usually end up in the grip change. That's how you end up in the reverse grip. But to actually be in the middle of a fight, when a guy pulls a blade on you and he's trying to stick it in you, and then you pull out yours and you want to do it. No, it's not going to happen like that, okay? So keep that in mind all the time. The grip switch happens because of some kind of natural occurrence in the environment, some problem, okay? It's usually not something that you do by yourself. It's very important. But if you do by yourself, maybe in this kind of a situation where you're in front grip, the guy has you locked up, and because you've done it and you have skill, you could maybe change your hand like this and then get into the reverse grip so you could stab. Or you could switch it here like that, but the person is moving with full force energy. I wouldn't suggest it. I prefer just to leave it in that grip configuration and find another way to get this problem solved. Okay? Even if I have to stab him in the ass, it's better than taking a risk to do something like this. Okay? It's better to leave it in the grip configuration that I have and take whatever I have on that side and then use my other tools in order to get me through this. Okay? That's it. Now let's take another look at another common mistake that people do with sticks, and this is a training drill that people will do. Start off, and then he puts me into a lock, and then he comes back again, and it takes me into the lock, and they do this again and again and again. Okay? I don't even know how to do it because I haven't trained Krav like that in a long, long time. I saw it many, many years ago, but I never bothered with it because I don't believe in things like that. Now the problem with this is that, again, the problem with human energy. Human energy, when it's aggressive, does not stop. It comes forward all the time. It does not stop. So you have to understand that in your training drill, that energy has to continue the flow. You redirect the energy or you stop energy and then do something else. But it's very, very rare where the person's energy, the aggressor's energy, the person who's attacking, is going to stop their energy flow in order for you to do a technique, or stop their energy flow because of whatever reason. It's very, very, very strange. It doesn't happen like that. It's usually a very aggressive forward energy flow that's going to come into you. So when you see something like this, that's your first mistake, that the energy is actually able to stop because the person has stopped. To train like this is to train to fail. What you want to do is that you want to understand that energy will continue to flow. Okay? So when this comes in, what am I hitting actually? I'm not hitting a stick, because the chance of me and him having a stick that we can hit together is so slim. Most probably what you're going to see is this. That's most probably what you're going to see. Okay? And when that energy is coming towards me, movement is the thing that's going to keep me alive. Not me trying to interrupt his flow of force. Movement will keep me alive. So that comes in, movement will keep me alive before I can come back in again and then try and interrupt that. But if I want to interrupt that flow of force, I'm getting myself directly in the line of fire for no reason. It doesn't make any sense. And especially when you have something like this. Really? 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 And I'm giving you what? 5% of what a crackhead methamphetamine maniac will give you? Okay, when he picks up a tire iron? I'm giving you what, 5% now? Do you really think that that's a possibility? Think about it again. Okay? So, That's your first mistake, to assume that energy stops. Energy does not stop. That's a mistake that many people make, and we have to correct that mistake in order to make the drill practical. Okay? So, the next mistake, is to assume that strikes on a human being are actually going to stop a person from moving. This is a mistake again. Strikes on a person, you can hit a person, for example, a meth head, you can hit him multiple times to the point where his arm breaks. Okay? You can hit him until his arm breaks. You can hit him until the wrist doesn't function anymore. He still continues to fight against you because his ability to sense that pain is so reduced because of the drugs he's on. Now, I'm giving you that example because the kind of people that you're going to meet up with that are going to attack you randomly are people that have a need for something. They have a need for your money for some purpose, or they have a need to hurt you for some purpose. They're probably not doing this because they're random maniacs. The random maniac is not that random. Usually there's a purpose for what they want. And if it's a meth head, for example, he needs your money, he needs your jewelry in order to buy meth. And he will go through you and your child and all the chickens on our farm to get that meth. Okay? So you have to keep that in mind. So his energy is not going to stop. His energy is going to continue flowing regardless of how much you hit it. The only way that you stop a person like that is by knocking out the central computer system. That's why I always say go for the computer all the time. And it doesn't matter if you're a police officer and you have 7 people around you and you're dealing with a guy who's gone wacko on you. Okay, no problem. You've got 7 guys. One can grab this arm, that leg, that, no problem. But if I'm on my own and this happens to me and I have to take care of my daughter at the same time, I don't give a shit about rules anymore. So all of this crap of trying to control the individual is out the door. I want to knock out the central computer system. There's no other way to do it. Okay? So this is what you want to do. So if you're going to train a drill, you have to understand what you're doing the drill for. Okay? Don't just train drills mindlessly, especially if you're on a teacher's level. I'm talking to you as if you're a person who has experience. If you're a person who has never trained anything before and your teacher tells you to do it, just do it, because you don't know any better anyways. But if you're a person who's trained for many years and you have practical experience already maybe, you should now start thinking about how to explain this to other people in a proper way so that they understand. Okay? Rather than just continuing with the drill and then they don't understand what the drill is for, why the drill is there, the principles of the drill. All those things have to be explained and correctly placed. Okay? So we come in, we go through, and that's our go through. And the second mistake, as we saw over here, the assumption that people stop because of pain. This is a mistake. People don't stop because of pain. So that's a mistake that we have to correct. And we have to explain this if you want to do the drill, okay, or any other related drill. This is just the principles I'm giving you now. So people don't stop because of pain. They continue through pain and they don't care how you feel or how anybody feels. They'll continue. Assume that all the time, that you will continue through until you take out the central system. Okay? Assume that all the time. Or unless you have 7 of your friends which can control it. Okay? Whichever one of the two, no problem. So that's next. Next mistake. The joint lock. Joint locks do not work on people who are fresh and people who have the computer system still functioning at 100% or 95%. It doesn't work anymore. Joint locks only work once you're able to take 50% of this and put it away somewhere. Okay? Send him into the dream world for a while. And you can do that by knocking out the central computer system some way, okay? Or you can do that by some other method, smashing his head against the wall, okay? Or like I said, throw a chicken on his head. Whatever you want. Make sure that this thing doesn't function properly anymore. That way, when I get a lock, I'm getting the lock for what purpose? I'm getting the lock to establish control after the person has already been dominated. I don't try and get the lock, hold the person there, and he's struggling with me the entire time. No. Locks are there to establish a control after you've dominated the hostile. They're not there to establish control on a fresh individual who can outthink the lock and then try and pull out a blade or a gun that he has and then use it against me. No. I dominate the person first, and then I place the lock on to keep control so that I can do a search of the individual after to find the weapons that he has, because I assume he's got weapons. Okay? So that's what I do the lock for. So you're down on the floor and I have your hands all tied up like that or like this in a lock, okay? I got you in that cool lock. You're on the floor, my foot goes on that, keeps you there, and then I start searching for weapons which are more dangerous than you are, okay? That's what I start doing. I start checking this guy. And then if you have the ability, you call for backup. You call for the police, you call for help, you call for whatever, depending on where you are, of course. Some places there are no bloody police. So you do the best you can with your resources that you have yourself, okay? So that's a very important principle. So the number one thing, energy does not stop. The number two thing, people do not stop because of pain. And the number three thing, locks are there after you've dominated your hostile and your opponent. They are not there in order to control a subject or a hostile which is fresh. Three very important principles to understand, okay? Okay, now we're going to take a look at some issues regarding grappling. Now, basically, when people are grappling, they have to understand the difference between grappling in real life, when you're grappling against an opponent who in the street, who could have friends, who could have weapons, all of these things. You have to take that into consideration. As opposed to grappling in a dojo or grappling in a competition where you only have to worry about one individual and one problem all the time. So this is a common mistake that people make, and we're going to try and show the problem with this and also try and show some solutions for it. Okay. So we're going to take a look at two things. One is the classical guard position that a lot of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Judo, a lot of these kind of individuals they take, and they use it. And then we're going to take a look at some self-defense that comes out of these kind of systems. And the problems with those kind of self-defense techniques, because they don't really understand what the opposition is going to bring to them. Okay, so let's try the first classical guard position. So we start over here, and we do the guard first. He's going to take me into his guard. He does something, and then we go down, and I end up somehow in his guard like this. Okay. Now his whole intention for this is that he's able to protect himself very well because he's able to control me from here. Now the idea is very good. It functions fine. I like the idea of being able to control the enemy. The problem is that when you're dealing on the street and when you're dealing with multiple attackers, what do you actually control? You control one individual, but you can't control your environment. There's so many X factors now. So in this kind of situation, there could be secondary or third individuals, or people coming from the other side. You would never see them if you stay in this position. Whereas if you would be on your feet, you would be able to see them and identify problems before they arise. But here, he's not able to see anything. So the first problem is mobility and visibility. Okay. Another issue, when we're here, okay, I'm here, he's trying to do something, okay, he only understands me. He's not really paying attention to anything else. He's trying to do some technique on me, okay? But I can also do a technique on him. Now let's take a look at this. Take me into an arm lock, please. He tries to take me into an arm lock. I'm not a good grappler, so he easily gets me into the arm lock. And then I pull out a weapon. Now the situation is so drastically changed that he doesn't understand what he's into anymore. Okay? All he's thinking about is his arm lock, but I have a gun in my hand now, which I pulled out from the back. Okay? Now all I need to do is start shooting into his leg. Nothing else. And this game is so over, and he has no clue, and he's never even seen it. So this is one of the problems that you'll see when you're dealing in an environment where you're using competition techniques against people that are armed in the street, that have no regulation. So if this wouldn't have been a gun, if it would have been a knife, for example, if the person was armed with a blade, as soon as he pulls me into his guard, I'm going to try and work myself to my weapon. I'm going to keep myself close, and I want to work myself to my weapon. And then I have a blade out already. My blade is out in my hand already. He doesn't even know it. He can't even see it. All he sees is he's trying to wrestle with me here, and he's trying to grab my arm. But I already have a blade out right here, which I pulled out. Okay? and this blade is going to be repeatedly going into this person. So these are some of the problems that I have with competition techniques that people try to take into the street. Now another one is where they try and turn these competition techniques into self-defense techniques. But when you look at a competition technique, it's meant for competition. There's nothing wrong with the technique. It's good. The guard is a good position to be in when you're in a grappling competition. It's excellent. There's nothing wrong with it. But you cannot transfer that technology into a street situation where it doesn't apply. And when you try to, you really have to understand what the street situation is in order to do it properly. Now, in Silat, we don't have any guard position, and there's a reason why we don't have a guard position, because I don't want to be on the floor. If I'm on the floor, that means one of two things have happened. Number one, I screwed up somewhere. I fell down, I let the guy take me down, whatever it may be, I hit my head and fell down, whatever it may be, somehow I screwed up, and I'm on the floor, and this guy is there and with me, okay? That's one way that I'm going to get onto a floor in a street situation. And the second way is that this guy's a much better grappler than me, and he wants to be there, and he put me there. So that's the only way that you're going to get into this. But voluntarily, if you go down into this situation in a street environment, then I think you're a little bit crazy if you really want to put yourself in there, because you don't understand the X factors around you, and plus the person could be armed, and most criminals are armed. So this is a serious problem. So now, we modify, as I said, we modify a technique that comes from a martial arts system which is predicated on people being equal and on rules and on all of these things in a competition environment. We take that technique and we try and turn it into a self-defense technique now. So let's see the self-defense technique. Here, he's got me in some kind of a weird thing. I want to punch him, and then he uses his leg to defend himself and hold my arm. Okay, something like this. Now these kind of things where you guys, the whole point of this is you've lost, the principle is mobility. Mobility has been lost. So it doesn't matter what you do when you're on the ground over there, you are 100% vulnerable. As soon as this person does something, you are 100% vulnerable. So you do not want to do that. And you have to be able to identify those key indicators. And one of those key indicators is that triangle of death over here. When the person wants to pull something, whether it's a gun or a knife or whatever, you're going to see that triangle. So whenever you see those key indicators, you're going to have to realize to yourself, hey, this is not a competition anymore. Then you've got to get yourself out of the situation. Mobility is the key to survival, not staying there and fighting with the person. I don't want to fight with you. I want to win and get away. Okay? I'm not interested in fighting people. I only have to be interested in winning. So the mentality has to change completely. So this kind of a thing here, and then I come out and I can pull my dagger out and start fighting with this. This is bad news. Okay. So now let's take a look at the way you can do this. That you don't have to be in a situation where you're on the floor and ruined and in a deadly situation. So let's say, for example, he's armed. Okay. Now something happened to me and we're fighting. Okay. He knees me. Give me the knee. Knees me and I fall down. This guy starts to come on top of me. Now, I use my feet to get the hell up. Now, when we do this in a little bit more fast, violent fashion, it will look like this. If I knees me, I've used my feet to create distance. I was on the ground for a split second, and I distanced myself from him. Me lying over here and then finding a way to drag him into my guard so he's close to me is suicide. I don't want that. I fly to my feet, I get distance, and then I try and find a weapon. That's the way it works. Okay? So that's a serious problem that you'll see in competition systems that you have to correct. And if you don't correct it, it will be corrected for you. So learn it. Okay, let's take a look at a common mistake that people make when it comes into the mount position. The mount position for competition and the mount position for street combatives is very, very different. And in my opinion, you shouldn't even be using the mount position in street combaters because there's no advantage for you. You lose your mobility. So in real combat and in a real problem situation, the most important thing is to be mobile, so you can get out of the problem, or that you can get to cover, that you can get to concealment, so that you're able to move. Because it's always you fight and then you move and then you move and then you fight and then you try and get yourself out of the situation. There's a lot going on all the time. You don't want to stay in one position and immobilize yourself in that position. It's not necessary and it's dangerous. So this is the problem I have with the mount position. So I'm going to show you some issues that I have with this. Now basically, I'm here on the floor. This guy is in mount position on top of me. He's got the mount position. He's a strong, whatever, jiu-jitsu guy, whatever guy, grappling, whatever. He's got the strong mount position, hard for me to get out. He wants to go for his key lock. Okay, this is a very common thing. He wants to go for his key lock. He can do with punching, he can go for key locks, whatever it may be. When he goes for his key lock, he's dedicated himself to immobilizing himself and me. Okay? So now he's got the key lock. If I'm a big guy, I'm going to be struggling a little bit, and because I'm not a good grappler, as good as he is, he's obviously going to get it, but it's going to take him time. In that time, I have complete access over here to my weapon systems, because most human beings keep their weapons on their hip level. So I am able to access my weapon systems and use them immediately, whether it's a gun or a knife or whatever. I'm able to use it. And if I'm on a gun, I'm going to shoot him a couple of times over here, and I think his key lock is going to be broken. Okay, so this is a problem that I have with dedicating yourself to immobilization. Okay, so that's a problem. It's better to be mobile. That's the problem number one. It's not going to work. It's not a good thing. There are better things that you can do. Second issue, the guy is here, and then he wants to start punching me. I'm not stupid, okay? And most of the guys that are gonna attack you on the street have had some experience with fighting. They know what it means to have somebody on top of them punching them. He's gonna get his hands up and he's gonna block himself. This is a normal thing. You're not gonna get all the punches on an open guy. He's gonna protect himself. If he can just do this, just for a split second to get you off balance, whatever it may be, again he has access to his weapons, and he's able to use those weapons on you without you even knowing what is coming. So there's a serious problem involved here, and that's the problem of mobility, and the problem of you immobilizing yourself and assuming that the person is unarmed. Because if you assumed that they were armed, you wouldn't have put yourself in this position anyways. Okay? So this is a serious problem. And here, as you can see, any small balance shift, whatever, I'm able to access my weapons on both sides, and I'm able to use them against him. Okay? Okay, come on. Come on. So, basically, when you fall down, what you want to do is you want to fight your way to your feet all the time. You don't want to stay there on the floor and then, you know, try and get him into some kind of a lock or something like that. There's no advantage to it. You want to fight your way to your feet, and then you're able to use your weapons more effectively. You're able to understand your environment more effectively. So the principle is always to fight your way to your feet, not to immobilize yourself. Immobilization equals death, especially when there's shooting happening in the situation. If people are shooting at you, if there's a person with a gun in this situation like we saw here, immobilization and lack of mobility is what kills you. So you don't want to be in a situation where you're not able to move. So that's why I have a serious problem with this. And I think that you, with a little bit of research and a little bit of practice, and including weapons, hidden weapons, guns, knives, sticks, shanks, anything that you can improvise and then try out, you'll see in your training that it's not as simple as just mounting a guy and punching him. It doesn't work that way. Do a little bit of research on the issue and you'll see that very, very quickly. Okay? Okay, now we're going to look at some extra common mistakes that people take for something serious and for real training technique when they're doing joint locking. Okay, now I've seen many joint locking techniques related to a knife that come from people who don't know how to use a knife properly, who've never killed anybody with a knife, who've never seen anybody get killed with a knife, who've never been attacked by a knife. So they take this weapon and they use it as if there's no energy flow and human aggression behind it. They take this weapon and they use it in a static manner, and that's why they're able to complete their techniques and show people a technique which is seemingly functional, but in reality would get everybody involved killed, except for the person holding the weapon. Okay? Now I want to show that to you. Now the first one is the overhand knife attack. The overhand knife attack, that's based on the concept that the enemy is stagnant. This one. And then he takes me into a lock. And then he breaks my arm happily. And then I'm supposed to give up. Okay. Now there are two problems with this. Number one problem, as I mentioned before, energy does not stand still and neither does aggression. It's always moving forward in a line towards you. Energy does not stand still. The second problem is the assumption that the person will stop because you've broken his arm. Those are two things which are false, and evidence has proven this to us to be false. And you can ask anybody who's been in real combat situation, they will tell you very clearly that people who are hurt do not stop, and energy does not stop. It goes right through you, and you better understand how to redirect it, and you better have good mobility, or else you're going to get killed, or you're going to get seriously injured. So when you look at a technique like this, the energy has been stopped. This immediately tells me that the person doesn't understand energy. What this would look like in real life when you're fighting with a human being would look like this. That's what you will see in real life. If the person would actually come with the overhand classical psycho hammer stab, then this is what it would look like, because he's going to be coming forward to push it into you. You're not going to be able to do a key lock on him. It's not going to work that way. The only way that you could possibly do a key lock on me, if you want to correct the technique and still use it, because the technique did come from somewhere, if you want to correct it and still use it, you have to damage the central computer first. Okay? That's what you've got to do. You've got to injure this person a good 50% first. You've got to damage him first. And then you're able to do the lock. All joint locks come after the person has been seriously damaged. They are for control. They are not for holding fresh people. It doesn't work that way. And if you want, try, and you'll see it doesn't work. So, here when I'm coming overhand, I'm going to interrupt his flow immediately because I'm coming forward. And my secondary hand is not going to lie down here, waiting. My secondary hand will be up here to do something to him. So this is what you're going to see. And then later on, if this person has training with this weapon, it's going to look like this. That's what's going to happen if the person has training with a knife. Okay? So that's a problem number one. So you look at that problem, test it out by yourself, see how it looks when you put energy behind that, and not just the dojo guy doing this. See how it looks when the energy goes through the person, and then understand. Okay? You have to damage a person severely if you want to use that technique. Otherwise, don't use that technique. A better option would be to pass the weapon when it comes through. That way you maintain your distance and your mobility, and you don't have to threaten yourself with a blade coming directly at you. Better to move your position and pass. Plain and simple. Okay? Next technique. Common one again. I stab in, he stops my arm, and he gets me into a lock. Again, I'm a fresh man, he has not hurt me, and he's getting me into a lock. Again, as I said, the mistake is clear. Now the problem with this again, the energy flow. The energy flow stops here. But human energy doesn't stop here when it's aggressive. It goes forward. So, keeping that in mind, this is what the technique would actually look like. And I would repeatedly try to stab this thing into him. And if it doesn't work this way, if you can take a look at some videos from prison riots, when a person gets shanked, look at the video. The person tries their best to stop like this because it's a natural reaction. This is a natural reaction, to put something in between. And then what does the aggressor do? They change direction immediately, because that's natural too. If there's something stopping me, I go to the other position. That's a natural human action. So if you want to deal with this, you have to deal with it at the root, and the root is here. You don't deal with it over here. You deal with it at the root. Now I want you to control the root. Now, the root has been controlled. The root is here. As long as he's able to maintain control of the root here, it doesn't matter how I go, he still has a better chance. But if he's trying to do something like this, no way. And if the person is trained with the weapon, it looks like this. So, number one, number two, and then the last one we'll take a look at, number three. I'm coming in with my weapon. And he takes me and flips me over. This is a better comprehension of things than the first two. The first two are predicated on the idea that energy is going to stop. This one at least takes into consideration that energy is going to continue. The only problem is it doesn't take into consideration aggressiveness. And it doesn't take into consideration that I have a second hand and I have two legs. Okay? And it doesn't take into consideration that I have a brain and I'm going to use it. There are different levels of sophistication for enemies. You cannot train for the base level. You have to be able to modify your levels of force according to your enemy all the time. This person who has no training, this person who has some training, and this person is a professional killer. They are totally different in the way they're going to move, approach you, and deal with you. You must be able to understand the entire line from top to bottom. Now, do this one more time, please. And then I fall over. A way that you can look at this is that I'm going to stop it somewhere in the middle when I feel something has gone wrong. I've committed myself to the attack. Okay? Am I going to stop here? No. Do it again, please. As soon as I feel that the initial thing didn't work, I'm going to start moving and doing something else. And he's not going to be able to follow me with this kind of beautiful rotation. It's excellent looking, but it doesn't work. But the idea behind it is correct. Let the energy flow through. So I like that idea better than the first idea. But still, it cannot work. Now, this is another problem I have. This is a serious issue. Because when you take a look at evidence again, look at the evidence or talk to people who've experienced it. When you look at the evidence, this doesn't happen. This is not a duel. This is not 1758 in old Germany where people are dueling with each other. This is not what's happening now. Now we deal with ambushes. An ambush looks something like this. That's what an ambush looks like. It's very, very different kind of assault. So there is no time for you to do that. There is no opportunity for it. What you want to do is to create some kind of control onto the root of the problem. So when the person is coming in, this is most probably what you're going to get. Here, and this, repeatedly. And if you try to stop it, he changes direction and goes the other way and into the neck and into the facial area. That's most probably what you're going to get. But the committed strike coming in and then staying stagnant and waiting for you to do your turnaround, most probably not going to happen. So you have to train to fail in that respect. in the way that you want to train to understand that if you're doing that, the person can change their force. And make sure that your training partner does change his force. So if you want to train that technique because that's your system, okay, then do so, but you must understand the consequences if you fail, or when you fail. So when he's coming in, okay, do the turnaround again. He has to understand that I can change my direction and come at him, and he has to then receive that problem and deal with it. He cannot just assume that this is going to work. He cannot make that assumption. So you have to train in a more realistic fashion, and that's more battle-focused training, more reality-focused training. So it takes a little bit of innovation, takes a little bit of research on your part, that you go out and you see police videos, you see videos of corrections officers, prison riots, you talk to people who are ex-convicts, you sit in an ambulance for a while and go around and see in an inner city ambulance what the hell is going on in real life, how people are actually attacked, what cuts, slashes looks like, gunshot wounds look like, how did this happen to the person? You start to research a little bit, and you'll find that you're able to take that information and place it into your system and make your system much more efficient and realistic in real life than if you would just forget about all the real world and keep on doing your thing. Okay? So for people who are more intermediate and higher level, I ask you to do that because it's for your own safety and for the safety of the people around you. Those of you, I mentioned this before, those of you who have no training and you don't know what you're doing, this is the first time that you pick up a video and look at it, or this is the first month that you're training, or the first 6 months you're training, shut the hell up and listen to what your instructor says. Whatever they tell you, just do it, because you don't know any better. You can't distinguish between A, B, or C. So just shut the hell up and do what you're supposed to do. And later on, as you have experience, after a year, 2 years, you'll be able to identify what works, what doesn't work, and why. And then start doing your research from the beginning. Okay? Guys, I made this video because I want to try and correct some errors that I saw with people. It's not because I want to establish how smart I am, or I want everybody to understand that I know everything and they don't know anything. That's not the point. The point of the video is to show some basic mistakes that people make and principles that are going to get you into a lot of danger, into a lot of problems. So you want to understand the correct principles rather than training things which are wrong. The only one that's going to allow you to stand there and do something to them is this guy. Okay? My good friend over here, Mr. Chicken. I grab him, I hold him, I put his neck out, and then I finish him off. This is the only one that's going to allow me to do something, and even he tries to fight a little bit so that I don't grab him. Imagine when you're dealing with a human being, okay? Now, human beings will continue to fight against you no matter what, until their last breath. And if they're on some kind of drugs, methamphetamines, cocaine, heroin, whatever it may be, you're dealing with people that are not in their right mind, who don't feel the same way anymore. They're physically not capable of feeling the same anymore. There's a lot going on in these people mentally and physically which you don't see. But their aggression level is surpassed what anything that you could possibly imagine could be in the training environment. So when you're dealing with that, you have to understand that. And when you train, you want to train in order to deal with these kind of individuals. You don't want to train to deal with your training partner. You want to train so that you're capable of dealing with people who are really aggressive and who are really trying to kill you or hurt your family. So that's the whole purpose of it. So you want to make sure you train properly. You don't train for fun, you train for skill, so that you're able to do something. The fun part is a result of training properly, because you're with your buddies, you're in the environment that you like, you're doing what you want. So that's fun, it's nice, it's a lot of great stuff. But make sure that your actual training time is spent training properly, so that you don't repeat mistakes over and over, and then you stand there, and then you take pictures with your friends with knives and things like that. All that it doesn't mean anything. Important is that you have skills which you're able to protect yourself with, protect your family, your friends, and other people who are around you, okay? So train properly, train with the correct principles, and make sure that you can do what you're supposed to be doing when you're supposed to.